Have you been thinking about an innovative way to promote your brand and attract new customers? Well, welcome to Christiana Cross Media, where your imagination meets cutting-edge AI production. With AI-powered video, we can create stunning commercials, animated content, and even custom characters for your brand, whether for traditional media or social platforms. We even craft storyboards, design persuasive pitch decks, and sales presentations. Our AI-powered solutions cater to all your media needs. We take your brand or image into the future. Let me show you what's possible. Want a cinematic ad with a superhero flair? No problem. Perhaps an anime adventure that transports your audience to a whole new world? Art lover? Your brand could be a masterpiece in motion. Looking for something fun and quirky? Let's go Pixar style. Or dive into fantasy and fairy tales. Maybe a cartoon wonderland to showcase your product. How about claymation animation? Lights, camera, action, and show the world. With Christiana Cross Media, we don't just create ads, we build experiences that captivate audiences and make your brand unforgettable. From commercials to ongoing animated series, we can develop a unique AI-powered character and create weekly content that tells your story in a whole new way. Be the first in your industry. Contact Christiana Cross Media.
For nearly 11 years, Judge Stephen Craig Stokes has served our community with fairness, dignity, and respect for the law. With decades of experience as a judge, prosecutor, defense attorney, and Army officer, he understands justice from every side of the courtroom. No one leaves his court feeling unheard or disrespected. Experience matters. Integrity matters. Keep Judge Stephen Craig Stokes.
Hey, welcome back to the RobCast podcast. It tongue-ties me a few times from time to time. I'm just getting used to saying it. But anyway, we're back. I got two great professionals here, educated people who know their craft very, very well, experienced in different functions, and can pontificate on a very high level and constructive level, I think, is more important than anything else. We tend at times not to be able to pontificate positively and calmly, and I think that we're doing a great job of doing that. Thank you both for that. But this last session here, let's talk a little bit about racism. Here's my take on racism within the political arena. I think we all have grown up on some levels prejudice, if you will, and you have to grow up knowing who you are. And I was one of those kids that I didn't realize who I was until I left where I was. You know, when you're around, your people all the time, you have no idea that other people exist. I'm gonna share something with you guys. You might think it's kind of funny, but one of my sisters, when we were kids, we were out riding around, and there was a white person walked by, and we freaked because we had never seen anybody that was white. And I'm telling y'all, I was about 5 or 6 at the time, older. But my older sister, who, God rest her soul, I miss her to death, but she actually had a nightmare that night, waking up saying, a white man, a white man, a white man. This is a true story. But again, I say all that to say that our differences about each other are something that we recognize at an early age. Now, some of us learn how to meld into those differences. But then some of us, we're taught, how to make sure that you don't ever cross that line or don't do this. Parents tell the kids, don't you do this, bring this person home. Or there's a cute one out there, if she can't wear, or if she don't use a straightening comb, don't bring her home. Y'all ever heard that one? No? Okay. But anyway, that's not funny. Okay, my bad. Okay. Anyway, you guys you're a tough crowd. My goodness. Anyway, so why don't we jump back in on this last session and talk about racism? Me, I think there's a negative stigmatism about Republicans is that they're all white. Well, Dr. Harris and I, excuse me, Dr. Moore and I are staunch examples that it's not the case. As a matter of fact, we get stigmatized ourselves within our own race on some levels for being Republicans versus Democrat. You know, and when you say conservative, it just drives some people crazy because they don't want anything to do with it. But today, I want you guys to do what you can to help our audience and each other dispel that rumor about racism within politics. Dr. Moore, why don't we start with you on this one?
Well, for me, when I've asked these questions, this is the way I answer it. Does racism exist in America today? Absolutely. Because for me, that is a thing of the heart. Is America a racist country? No. And what do I mean by that? I think the civil rights legislations and other laws that have been on the book to eradicate companies, both public and private, being able to hurt Black Americans or discriminate against Black Americans. I think the laws have been put in place that at least gives us an opportunity to circumvent or get around it because we can sue you, right? And so the consciousness of America has gotten to the point where if an area in the law allows us to change it to bring about non-discriminatory laws that allows us to pursue the American dream, then America is doing that. Are we perfect? Absolutely. We're not a perfect nation, but any country that continues to thrive to identify those areas that are within the system that hurts Black Americans and take the efforts to remove them, then we are heading towards success. The thing about a person's heart, that's a prayer issue. And not only are we discriminated or there are very negative views by many white Americans still in this country, but what I have experienced that 99% of foreigners that come to this country legally or illegally take on that same view of us as being lazy, trifling, unethical, immoral, and we're going to kill you, right? And the concern I have is that once I try to look into why some of these views prevail, and I, talk to different college students across the country, particularly those that are out in Idaho, Wisconsin, Wyoming, and when they tell you that the only Black person they've ever seen was the one or two or three at their university, they were serious. When I asked them, why did they have stereotypes of Black people, you know what they said? Because I don't have them around me. The only impression of you I can think of, Dr. Moore, is what I see on TV. And on television, it always shows you doing drugs. It shows you beating women. It shows you killing Black people and white people. It shows you mugging. It shows that you're immoral. And these were young college students. And so when I thought about it and I went to my adult sons, I say, so where do you see the problem? He says that intentionally, the media, the establishments that are in the movie industry and the record industry and all these other entertainment aspects of our society has purposely portrayed us as being immoral, unethical, and so therefore everyone has bought into that stereotype. I even had Black students that came to Atlanta for my son when he graduated from the University of Texas. They thought they had gone to Africa. Now I'm serious. They were like, we hadn't seen this many Black people ever. Where did all these Black people come from? And then because we live in Black communities, we forget that Black people are centered mostly in urban centers outside of the South. So you're either in Philadelphia, you're either in DC, you're either in New York, you're either in Chicago, or you're somewhere out in an enclave from an urban center. But the majority of America, Black people don't live. We're not there. And so the only impression that they get is what we allow to be portrayed, and that is not a good impression. And the sad thing about it is that image goes with you overseas because those same companies are running those same movies, and we're not even going to talk about the rap music where everything was to be this, to whore this, we kill you here, we shot you here, we cut off your neck. What white person wouldn't be afraid if every rap song talked about killing you, right? So my take on this, Dr. Benson, is that racism, and we allow, as Black people, we allow it to continue and to exist because we won't take control of the narrative that portrays us in a certain image. Now, let me get to the party. Since the 60s, every Black person, majority of them drunk the Kool-Aid, that we were racist, that we were bigots, and all these things. Well, welcome. There's more white racists than there are white Democrats that are racist than white folks that are Republican that are racist, right? I mean, we want to forget the histories of the parties and the players and all those things. I will be the first to tell you that I tell my party today that I don't think they do enough on messaging in terms of tearing down racist comments that may be made or said by someone classified as a Republican. So for those of who that do not know, for the Republican Party, there is no litmus test, there is no qualifications, there is no test, there is nothing that says you're Republican. You could be a KKK, you could be anybody and say, I'm a Republican. And there's nothing we can do about it. So unfortunately, you have people that run under that label who really don't believe in our ideology, who really don't believe in the platform of Lincoln, who really don't believe in anything. And they say this off the wall, crazy stuff. And then our party fails to check them. That is where I have concerns with my parties in terms of that we need to be more aggressive in terms of tearing down the narratives of those individuals who run under our label, who say that they're Republicans when they're not upholding what republicanism and the ideology of Lincoln and our civil rights legislation portrays us in terms of who we are. And until we get a handle on that, Black in our community are going to continue to vote the Democrat ticket with the blinders on, ask no questions. It's because they have a D behind their name. It doesn't have anything to do with the Bible. It doesn't have anything to do with the Lord says don't abort babies. It doesn't have anything to do with says that a marriage should be between a man and a woman. We just throw all of our biblical views out the window and just say, because you are a Democrat, to hell with the word of God, right? I'm a Christian, but I'm really not a Christian. And I'm just going to do it, right? So that is my commentary that I have on all that.
All right. All right. Very good commentary indeed, and it's heartfelt. Obviously, I like the fact that you talked about the heart, because it's almost like jealousy. It's an emotion that you can't control. It's something that you feel, you can't control it. Okay, Dr. Mike, talk to us.
Obviously, being in the Democratic Party, we definitely see things differently. We started out this conversation tonight. We start talking about the state of politics. And in this country, it's a hot mess. It's all, to us, it's centered around racism. For an example, Donald Trump is considered a racist, a small-minded, immature child in a man's body with hateful, delusional, self-obsessed, emotionally bankrupt thoughts. Donald is preaching and promoting hate daily and is an embarrassment to the United States. He focuses on the minority and Black communities. Now, I'm saying that's part of what has been said to me from different members of the Democratic Party that has formulated those kind of thoughts. So racism, and it also goes back into what Dr. Moore was saying about the media, because if you think about it, the media is controlled by Donald Trump and the Republican Party, because there's only certain things that they're going to tell you in the media. And she's right. They portray us as villains. And I do want to make one other correction, that when you talk about mass shootings and the violence, those are done by mostly white males. You don't find a bunch of immigrants or Black people committing those crimes. So that's part of the racism and the narrative. They put that stigma on us and they make the public feel that it's about Black people.
But we just had some occasions of partners shooting.
Robert, can I ask Mike a question?
Yeah. I was jumping on him too.
Y'all talk at the same time.
Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
When he was a Democrat, because he's been a Democrat longer than he's been a Republican, was he a racist when he gave all of his money to Oprah, when he gave all of his money to Chuck? All of the Democrats that are in Congress right now, he basically funded all of them the first time. Was he a racist when he had a black girlfriend? Was he a racist when Michael Jackson was his friend? Was he, because when I go back and I look at all the documents, Democrats loved Donald Trump. Donald Trump, up until 2016, was their guy. Every time they needed some funding, Donald Trump did it. Who was there for the Clintons? Have always been there for the Clintons. Who? Donald Trump. Anytime they needed anything, who ran to their rescue? Donald Trump. When what's his name was in jail, the guy that was in South Africa, the president or whatever, they called on Donald Trump to help deal with the situation with Mandela. I mean, black Democrats have pimped him until he decided to run as an aura. And then it's just hard for me to believe that he is now 80-something years old, and 78 of those years, he was a Democrat and was involved in the Democrat Party. But for the last 10 years, as a Republican, he all of a sudden becomes a racist. I just want somebody to explain to me, based on his history and support and his ties to the DNC and to every Democrat, why is he all of a sudden now a racist? What is it? Because if you listen to him, people say he talked crazy when he was a Democrat, and nothing changed. The same thing he's saying now is what he's saying then. And what's amazing to me is that if you go back and you look at tapes from Obama on immigration, if you look at tapes of Hillary Clinton on immigration, if you look at tapes of Chuck Schumer on immigration, if you look at all of these issues that we're talking about today, welfare, SNAP, homelessness, they were saying the same thing that Donald Trump is saying today. I need for you, Mike, to tell me, if you look at the tapes, how is it that Hillary Clinton, Obama, Bill Clinton, Chuck Schumer are saying the exact same thing that Donald Trump is saying today? And it's on tape. It's not what Camilla is saying. But when he says it, it makes him a racist. Can you explain to me how that happens?
Well, first of all, I don't know what tapes you're talking about. I would have to see that and review it. But that's not that wasn't my point. I think if you heard me correctly, I said that's what some of the people in the party of the Democratic Party feel. And in a lot of cases, they're talking about his actions. We're not talking about what he did back when he was supporting Oprah Winfrey and all those other things. We're talking about what he's doing today. And that's what the people are concerned about. You take for example, he says publicly, we got to get that garbage out of our country. He's talking about the minorities. He's talking about the Simonians. But he says, well, why don't we bring in people from Australia? And then when you bring in those people from Ukraine who are immigrants, they put them in a hotel. So when you have those kind of actions, when you do those type things, that gives people the impression that you do have issues with people of color. And there's no question about it. I'm not talking about his history. Well, I'll tell you what, when the Epstein files come out, and when that comes out, we'll have another conversation, because all those people you just named, all of it was with Donald Trump, and all those guys, they hung out together. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about his actions and what he does today. Dismantling the Department of Education, doing things that's hurting with the SNAP program. You could talk about that all day long, but all it does is hurt minority people. Dr. Benson, you had a question too, didn't you?
Well, my point is Epstein hated Trump. So I'm waiting for those to come out too, because as you know, he had the lady from the islands. Wait a minute, he had the lady on the islands doing the hearing when questions came up about Trump, and he's trying to tell her in the hearing on the phone how to get dirt on Trump. So if you go back and really research the history between Epstein and Trump, you would see that they were number one enemies. So I'm waiting for those to come out too.
Yeah, but again, all I can go by is what I see and what I research, and all I see is Donald Trump and Epstein with young children, and they are accused of having relationship with those children. That's why he's ended up in prison. He's convicted. Epstein was convicted, but he's not here to talk about it now. So yeah, and none of us really know, because you don't know, neither do I, because we weren't there. So we could only go by what's presented in front of us, and that's what we go by.
But the victims themselves have come forward and said Trump is not involved. Now, we weren't there, but those victims were there. And they have the victims of every age group that has come forward that Margaret Taylor Greene, I can't say, has been advocating for. And all of those victims have said that spent time on the island, that spent time being abused, they have all vindicated Trump. So you're right. Neither you or I were there, but those children and those young adults who are now alive, who have come forth, have vindicated Trump.
Okay. Where'd you get that information from?
Guys, time out. Let me step in here, okay?
I just want to know where she got it from.
Well, the thing about the Trump Epstein files is really is kind of ancillary to me. We're talking about the government and function of the government. I believe truthfully that, and this is off to the side, that this revisiting of the Epstein case is a distraction. It's an attempt to get people to focus on something different. That's what I think. I'm not saying that Trump has. I'm sure he hasn't done it, because I've heard him say several times, "Look for what you want to look for. You're not going to find anything." And they keep looking, and they keep not finding anything. So at some point, as I'm sure Dr. Moore is alluding to this, you gotta let the Epstein thing go. The guy who did it is dead, and the what's his assistant? She's in jail. But at some point, it has to stop being the narrative about him. Let's start. I'm not going to say judging him. Let's start grading him on his governance. He is doing, and this is my opinion, because I want to move on. I think this time, he's doing a really good job of governing. He didn't do that last time. See, now, and maybe it's because he's a lame duck, I guess. I don't know. But I think his governance now is 100% better than it was before. You can see the results of what he's doing, and he's not lip service. He's doing it, and that's what has people uncomfortable. You get a lot of politicians that come into office. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. By the third year, they haven't implemented anything. He came in this last time and said, I want this done by the 1st of October. I want this done by this date, etc. And you have to respect that, whether you voted for him or not. And see, this is the other thing I wanted to get to about us as a country. It's like we all were in high school. Have either one of you, let me just ask you off the cuff, have either one of you ever run for office when you were in high school or anything like that?
No. I did.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so
I was vice president.
Yeah. So after you won or lost, what did you do? You didn't go to.
I called everybody
Yeah.
together. Listen, for me, I called the ones who voted for me, the ones who didn't.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is that we are so divided right now that we got to figure out a way to come back together, because I really believe that we all want the same thing. It's kind of like we have children. I could tell one of my kids something 100 times and they wouldn't think it's right. Somebody else tell them, and it's the best thing they ever heard. And all I'm saying is, I said that to you about 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So that's a lot of what I think is going on with Trump. So anyway, let's close down. What I want from you guys now is this. I want a final statement from both of you about how this went and where you think it should go in the future, as far as the podcast, not the podcast, but the country itself. Do you think that we'll ever get to a point where we'll have one political party? Because I know that was on the cusp a couple of times, but I think that I don't want to date myself, but to me, over the years in life, we've been harmonic until an event comes about. When I was in like the late 80s, to me that event was when Jerry Cooney fought Larry Holmes. Y'all remember that? Yep. I think that fight really divided us as a country. Up until that point, everything was relatively smooth. But then that happened and reminded us of our differences and what we thought about each other. Things simmered down. Then a few years later, what happened? You had the OJ trial. Then that's another thing that, again, polarized us as a nation. And we stopped thinking about the country. We start thinking about who we are versus collectively who we are. And then here of late, I think Trump's presidency and candidacy is the other thing that has served to separate us, mainly for the reasons that Camella was talking about. It's not about him. It's just the fact that he crossed over. and all everybody can think about is, okay, yeah, he's a racist. I don't think that at all about him. Do you know how many movies mention this guy over the years? I mean, think about how renowned and popular this man really was and the stuff he was doing. I mean, he was the biggest guy in the fight game, Trump Plaza, all that stuff. It was inevitable to me for him to get to where he is right now. Is he perfect? Nobody is. I don't think so. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never liked any president. It's just, I've always supported him because I was in the military. But I say all that to say this: we got to stop thinking us and them, or them and us, and vice versa. Now, we have to do that because of race, but politically, I don't think we do. I think that at some point we got to sever our differences and decide the fact that we're really one country. We got to agree on what we're going to deal with and what we're not going to deal with, what we're going to tolerate and what we're not. And I think that's another thing Camilla alluded to earlier. And Mike, you did the same thing. Some of these administrations we've had in the past, their focuses have been on different things, but none of them have really addressed and attacked the stuff that they say they were going to do, like he's doing right now. That's just my opinion of it. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to ask you guys, let's close out the show. Dr. Mike, I want you to give me a summary statement about where we are, and do you think we'll ever get to a point where we have one party, political party?
Well, first of all, I do want to thank you, Dr. Benson, and Dr. Camella Moore. This has been a very, very great night. It's been a great night. I've learned a lot, and I'm first to say that I don't know a lot of the things that we were talking about, some of the subjects, and you brought some light to the subjects. As far as one party is concerned, what that means to me and as Democrats would mean that there is a king. And that's part of the problem that we have right now with Donald Trump talking about trying to run for another term. He's talking about, and we don't, this country isn't made up of one party and a king. So I don't think we'll ever get to that point. I do think that we should work on things that's going to work on the American people. And that's never going to change because we have difference of opinions. We have difference of opinions tonight. But we do have to come to a medium where it's going to work for everybody. I don't know if that's possible, but that's at least a start. Once again, thank you very much for having me. And hopefully you invite me back again.
I don't know, Mike. You seem pretty argumentative. I got to think about that. You know what I mean?
I'm a Democrat. It's 2 against 1 tonight. I got for you.
Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Moore.
Benson and Benson. That's a nice ring, right? I want to thank you both. I enjoyed, being here tonight. Like I said, I really try to shy away from podcasts, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be with both of you gentlemen tonight. And it has been a learning process and a wonderful experience. And so this is how I would close. I'm a firm believer that, one, there will never be one party because the founding documents of this country are written in a manner in which we will never just have one party. Even, in every document, even when you look at federalism and what as pertains to states' rights, right? I mean, if you look at how this country was structured, other countries across the world, France and others, have tried to imitate it. Nobody could get or to come up with the American system, because I think it was by divine order that we are America for a reason. And our constitutions and our documents are written regardless of who it was written for. I think it is designed in a fashion, in a manner where we will never have one party, which takes me to my second statement. A people who loses a foundational belief system will self-destruct. When people ask me to classify myself, the first thing that I'm going to say is that I'm a believer, because I think of eternal, where I'm going to spend eternity. I'm not going to spend eternity as a Black person. I'm not going to spend eternity as a Republican. I'm going to spend an eternity based on a belief system that I feel that gives me eternal life. And when our worldview, which includes our politics, is not based on a biblical view, then it becomes humanistic. Then it becomes my truth. then it becomes my view, and you walk away from right and wrong. Because at the end of the day, the real truth, as we were designed by God, there is a right, there is a wrong, and our conscience tells us when there's a right and a wrong. But when we choose to politically ignore biblical views that are clear, no matter which party it is, we're on our way to be a declining civilization, just like those before us. Rome fell because they became immoral. Other great civilizations fell. There is a quote by the current uh, Putin in Russia and by the president of China, and both of them agreed is that we don't need to fight America with military arms. We just need to sit back and watch them implode from immorality, to watch them implode because they have a lack of values, watch them implode because they have no sense of anything that shapes their worldview that they're willing to die for. And so for me, it always comes down to a hard issue. One thing that slavery did, people may want to disagree, but it kept us at the altar. It kept us before and a belief in a belief system in which we sought instructions and guidance from God. And we believed that so dearly that our daily lives and everything that we did politically was shaped by that worldview. And where I see us in 2025 is a very humanistic, a very socialistic, a very your truth, my truth civilization, humanism, and there's no belief in God anymore. There's a remnant left, but for the sake of the remnant, I think America will be spared. But until people, particularly Black people, who have historically known to be the God-fearing, love you, church-going folks, if everybody else in the world and in America was heathens, Black folks didn't fall into the heathen category. But guess what? We are in the heathen category today. And so politically, I tell people all the time, I don't need for you to be a Republican. I need for you, if you say you're a Christian, just vote the Bible. You can say a Democrat forever, but just vote the Bible. I don't need for you to be a Republican. I'm thinking about how we're going to move the country forward, because if your policies and your politics is based on biblical views, we're going to thrive. If they're based on socialism and communism and humanism that's contrary to the word of God, we're going to implode. And so my hope and my prayer is that the Black church arise, because right now we're failing our community. All these issues that Mike, you and I have talked about today could have been solved if the Black church that everybody's paying their tithes and offerings to had done their job. They haven't. They failed. And until we become a community that are Bible-based believing, then our politics will be okay and this country will thrive.
All right. Hey, well, let me just say thank you for both very much. A lot of the stuff that you both are talking about and alluded to kind of smacks to terms like separation of church and state, electoral vote, all of those kind of things there. I mean, the racism issue, not
It
racism.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, it doesn't exist. But when you talk about things like electoral vote, separation of church and state, and other concepts, then we should be able to survive and get through all of this. But let me just sum up and say thank you so much. As Dr. Mike indicated, I've learned a whole lot just by listening to both of you today. And I'm looking forward to us doing this, getting together again real soon. So heartfelt thanks from Dr. Robert Benson and the RobCast PodCast, where we speak foundationed in truth. But we will get back with you guys the next time, and we'll talk to you soon. I'm going to close out the show, but thank you so much for joining us, okay? And
Bye-bye.
see you guys soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Dr. Moore, nice meeting you. My pleasure.
It's a pleasure. And I hope at some point in time I can get this into my schedule so we can do this again. But
Do it again.
Hey, Mike, she'll be back. I'll convince her. I'll call her or come see her or something.
You know what? Hey,
listen,
I would like to talk about transgenders.
Yeah, that's coming.
Well, you know what the Bible said. That's all I'm gonna say. And you know what? My oldest son, both of my sons are in the hard sciences, and they say, "What's so difficult about it? You either got an XX or XY. What's difficult about it?"
I get it.
What is difficult? And the thing about, if you haven't figured out, because one day you feel like you a woman, okay, then you're saying that God made a mistake. I mean, that's really what you're saying. And so what we have a tendency to do, there are some men that are more gifted towards the arts, because that's left brain, right? The art side is left brain. I think the right side is hard science.
Yeah, I'm not
So
really
when
sure.
you see a young guy that's interested in dance, we automatically want to push him into a feminine culture because he likes dance, rather than saying it's masculine to be a ballet dancer. It's nothing feminine. But we as a culture, we are forcing these identities on these children. Listen, we will all remember when we went through puberty. How does anybody at 13 figure out what they are, right? And so my point is, if you are 18 years old and you that messed up, and you think you need to do something, just don't do it with my taxpayer dollars. Go do what you do, right? But don't expect for me to pay for it. But I do not think that children should be mutilated under 18, where you're taking off their sexual parts, because based on what they think they feel today, and based on your socialist views as a parent, right, giving them their liberty, right, to hell with you, because you are destroying these people's lives. So for me, there's no such thing as a transgender. There's some people that are psychologically messed up.
Okay. Hey, well, listen, guys, we're going to table that transgender topic to the next time we talk again, because I got some thoughts on that myself. But again, as I said before, God bless you both. It's really been a pleasure having you on, and we will talk to you both very, very soon. Thank you for being on the RobCast podcast with Dr. Robert Benson.
Okay, guys, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right.
Hey, this is Dr. Robert Benson closing things out. What a great show with a couple of great people. As I said before, this show is going to be just that. We're going to flesh out the truth. We're going to pontificate. We're going to discuss things, and those discussions aren't going to always be smooth, as I would say. Sometimes they're going to be choppy. But one thing they will be is respectful and informative, and they will not be emotional, and they will be based in truth and fact. So, with that said, I'm going to tell you to stand by for our next show, or our next show is going to be on, I'm sure it's mental health, and you'll see more to come. But thank you so much. This is Dr. Robert Benson with the RobCast podcast, conversations grounded in truth. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, you guys.
Thank you for watching the RobCast podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Don't forget to turn on notifications for all new weekly episodes.